The American dream was not built on some big government paving the way for people. It was people with opportunity and liberty who made the most of it, who fulfilled their dreams, they created that business, and that's what the fulfillment of the American dream will be. Now, somebody who also represents the American dream to me, it's a great inspiration to our party, is one of the great leaders in his state, but also for the nation. Somebody who's inspirational to all of us. Just honored and thrilled to be with him here today. Please help me welcome Governor Jindal.
Thank you all very much. It's so great to be back in Colorado. Jason and Bob did such a great job. Let's give a great round of applause for both these leaders. Look, our president, let's be honest, he is a good family man, a good husband, a good father. The only two problems I've got with this president. Number one, he is the most liberal president since Jimmy Carter was in the White House. My second problem with him, he's been the most incompetent president since Jimmy Carter. And no disrespect to Jimmy Carter by saying that, by the way. Let's start with incompetent. This president made some promises to us. He has broken those promises. One promise I'd like him to keep. Remember, he said if we don't get this economy turned around in 3 years, it'll be a one-term proposition. Look at the promises he has broken. He said give him $800 billion for his stimulus bill. He'd keep unemployment below 8%. Unemployment has been above 8% for 42 months and counting. You look at median family income in this country, down over $4,000 since President Obama took office. You look at median household worth, 2-decade low since he took office here in Colorado. Median family income down nearly $3,000 since he took office. Nearly 22,000 fewer people with jobs since he took office. The statistics go on and on and on. 23 million underemployed, unemployed Americans. If you've got a student, you've got a child in school, there's nearly a 50% chance they're going to be underemployed or unemployed if they graduate this year. And here's the sad thing. Here's the sad thing. You listen to all those statistics, clearly his policies have failed. And yet all he knows to do is to borrow more money from the Chinese, raise more taxes, spend more money. We can't afford the government we've got. What does he do? He creates yet another entitlement program costing nearly $1.7 trillion. Now, Jason talked a lot about the deficit and the debt. We now, this president made a commitment. He said he was going to cut the deficit, he was going to cut that annual borrowing in half by the end of his first term. Instead, he has borrowed more than $1 trillion every year since he's been in office. Said he can break nearly every record. Now, $1 trillion, there's a lot of ways to think about this. I'll just give you two quick anecdotes. Several weeks ago, the president was telling the Europeans, you've got to get your economy growing again. He was worried about the impact on our economy and his re-election. Well, the German foreign minister said something interesting. He said to the president, why don't you get your own house in order? Because here's an embarrassing number. For as bad as things are in Europe, their debt equals 80% of their GDP in the Eurozone countries. In America, our federal debt today equals 100% of our GDP. Wow. You know things are bad when the Europeans are telling us you are spending and borrowing too much. You know, it's kind of like when the town drunk tells you you've got a drinking problem. It may be time to stop drinking. When the Europeans saying you're spending too much, it may be time to stop spending. And yet this president created a new entitlement program in Obamacare. Look at the promises he broke there. He said if you like your doctor, you like your health plan, you can keep it. Now the government is saying over 20 million Americans may lose their employer-provided health care coverage. He said he was going to bend the cost curve down. Now the government is saying health care is going to cost more, the health care spending is going to grow more in 2014 than if we hadn't passed this bill. He said he was going to protect Medicare. Now the government is saying he cut Medicare over $500 billion in cuts that are not sustainable, not realistic. He said he wasn't going to raise our taxes. The government is saying he raised our taxes over $500 billion. And after all this, you're still going to have nearly 30 million individuals without health insurance in America, all for an entitlement program we can't afford, on top of ones we can't afford today. And that really brings me to my second point. Not only has he been the most incompetent president, he has been the most liberal president we have seen since Jimmy Carter. You think about what's at stake in this election. Every several years, somebody gets up and says, this is the most important election of our lifetimes. It is really true this time.
It is.
You think about it, there are two different worldviews competing for your votes this election season. President Obama has what I describe as kind of that, it's that Occupy Wall Street worldview. And you can see that worldview every so often. He reveals what he really believes. Today he talked about more bailouts if he gets reelected. A couple of weeks ago, you remember he went to Virginia and said, if you've got a small business, you didn't build that. And every time he does that, his aides have to come out and say, the president didn't really mean that. Well, a few weeks ago, before that, he said the private sector is doing fine, it's the public sector we have to worry about. Last year, 2011, 3 different speeches. He said maybe America is lazy, maybe America has gone soft, maybe we've lost our ambition. My message to the president is the American people aren't lazy, we're not soft, we haven't lost our ambition. We simply
the president is lazy.
Now, President Obama spends a lot of time demonizing those in the private sector that have been successful trying to raise taxes on small business owners. I don't know about you, but the American dream doesn't say you're entitled to your neighbor's property or your neighbor's income. You're not promised equal outcomes in this country. You're promised equal opportunity in this country. You know what's great about the American dream? The circumstances of your birth, your race, your gender, your income, your geography, your zip code, they don't determine how well you do as an adult in this great country. If the American dream is you can do better than your parents did if you're willing to work hard and get a great education. That's what's at stake in this election. Governor Romney understands we grow the private sector economy, not the public sector economy. He understands we don't raise taxes on small business owners. You know, every generation of Americans has left more opportunities for our children than we inherited from our parents.
Yeah.
We don't want to become the first generation that mortgages our children's future with all this borrowing and spending so they've got fewer opportunities. That's what this election is about. It's about preserving the American dream for our children and grandchildren. My little girl brought a great button home from school the other day. It said, don't anybody tell the president what comes after $1 trillion. We cannot afford another 4 more years of this president's policies. He has done the best he can do. It's just not good enough for America. I want to thank you for coming out. I want to close by telling you 2 things, though. Number 1, this is an important election. You've got to tell your neighbors, your family, your friends, your colleagues, we have got to vote. We've got to stand up for our children and grandchildren. I want to thank you for coming out. God bless you. God bless Colorado. God bless America.